some students, so my non-binary kids are very just, this is where I'm at. I'm a shifting sword. Mm-hmm. And in my non-binary kids, I have some who are starting hormones, testosterone, estrogen, mm-hmm. or it's on their radar, and having that conversation with them around how they got there.
Mm-hmm. Is that ever scary for you as an adult when someone is going through the process at such an early age, or does that really not count as an early age for the kid who's like, I kind of been waiting to do this for a while now?
So the latter portion, I'm like, okay, cool, because mm-hmm. they can kind of tell me, I've gone to my doctor, here's my process, yada yada yada, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have the other demographic of well, I was told this, or I think I might, mm-hmm. and so especially when it comes to...
And there's expenses for both, because the upkeep is expensive.
Yeah. And luckily, the mayor of Maryland has dubbed Maryland a safe space for individuals.
Remember that?
Right.
Yeah, when that came out in the summer, I was like, wow, look at Maryland go.
That part, because individuals from Florida have had to relocate up here.
And a lot of down south states also, yeah.
But the other half is, especially being black, and this is the other half that I wanted to get to. Mm-hmm. Our black, non-binary, gender non-conforming students, and to students who are transgender and going into hormone therapy. Mm-hmm. We're not reminding them, but understanding that our blackness is going to be the first thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so what conversations are we having with these now female transitioning to male mm-hmm. around what is that going to be a black man in America?
Mental Health Monday.
Mental Health Monday.
Conversations like this. Like, I look at the internet and what social media has given us and YouTube has given us, mm-hmm. and like, I'm straight, right? But you being straight, that doesn't define the work that you're going to do.
At all.
If anything, it's a challenge to say, well, why aren't you? Mm-hmm. That's how I take it. Yeah. Why aren't you trying? Why have you just settled with, well, no one's in trouble? Mm-hmm. Like that, mm-hmm. taking the conversation forward means you have to ask the right question to the wrong people sometimes and get the answer that you don't want to hear, mm-hmm. but that's their answer, so that's their point of view. Even if you don't like
that's it,
understanding the point of view, and then, okay, what can I do for the folks who reach out and want help from me or would like representation in that space? And do I have the capacity for it? Because I'm not saying yes to every motherfucker in the world. No.
No is a statement. I taught my kids no is an independent clause. It doesn't depend on nothing else. Mm-hmm.
Do you want anybody to reach out to you and find you, or do you enjoy the privacy you have right now? Because I'm very like, hey, you don't have to let people know where they can find you at the end of an episode.
Maybe the next one.
Okay, cool beans. Well, will that be when we get the nonprofit up and start working on getting back in rooms?
Yes,
okay,
sir.
Cool.
Yes, sir. We'll talk.
We'll talk. I'll let you know. We're gonna line this up.
I appreciate you.
So we're gonna learn. We're gonna look at this one right there, and then I'm gonna do the whole intro. Mm-hmm. Cool. This is your main camera. It's hot, so it might shut off at a certain point. Sometimes when it's hot, it just be like that. So I just want to let you know.
I'm good right now. Mm-hmm.
All right. So we should do 3, 2, 1 as the count. But we had a great job, so I enjoyed everything we did today.
Thank you.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy Juice from Get Home Safe, back with another episode here with my homie Lynn.
What's up, y'all? What's up? Happy Thursday.
A day in the week. It's a day. So tell the people who you are and what it is that you do.
Awesome. My name is Cylindra Williams. I am a special educator out of Baltimore City Schools public school system. Yes. Mm-hmm. What else we doing? I'm 38.
Psychology.
Yes, I have a psych degree. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I teach 10th grade strategic reading.
You're big on emotional education also.
I am huge on emotional education. Thank you for this.
You're doing a great job. It's cool. I'm going to let you know who you are, whether you forget it or not. It don't matter. I'm like, you did that.
Yeah.
You did that. All right, so you're going to get it.
I thank you.
And I mean, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
All the talking that we did prior to coming here, I wanted to bring you on the platform just to hear your point of view, because like, I don't have a kid.
Okay.
You feel what I'm saying? Okay. Like, do I want a kid at one point? Yeah. No, definitely. But like, before becoming a parent, you got to practice. You got to understand the issues that your kids are going to deal with. And like, hey, man, do I have the capacity to be this person for them? And if I don't,
that part,
where do I find it?
Right. Especially, and that's very, to have that conversation before having children, it needs to be had, because it's real. It's real.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think one thing my partner and I do is like, we really ask each other like, hey, are we going to be able to be who we need to be for each other?
Yeah.
You know, between like health issues, family history, what do you expect out of this relationship? If I'm not that, I don't think you should be looking to me for it. We can position you for somebody better who's not me.
It's a conversation.
You feel what I'm saying? Yeah.
It's a transaction. You gotta understand that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a transaction. Here's the receipt. Here's what I pay. Here's what you pay. Everything look good.
We good.
It's never gonna be equal, but do we try? I always question the effort. And when it comes to the effort of the work that you do, how do you feel about the effort that you've put into your work so far as an educator and someone who cares?
I know that I put in great efforts because I see the rewards of it. You know, I see individuals that I work with throughout DC that come back and they're like, "Yo, Lynn, X, Y, and Z you said to me when you did for these." So I see it, and I also know that there's still 1,000% more I can do, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It's just of that 1,000%, what's going to be my main 500? You know, what is going to be that main thing that I'm going to stick to and say, this is what I'm working through. This is why I'm around. This is why I'm back into school. This is why I'm getting back into my nonprofit. And so it's just focusing on that 500 to 1,000 because I know I can do 1,000% better.
Okay, well, good job, you.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
I appreciate it.
All right, so tell me about your work.
So I'm a teacher in Baltimore City Schools.
What's that like?
So I don't have I taught at Blue.
Blue.
And when I was there, I was new to DC.
Okay.
So I was learning a lot of DC through Blue, which was like a crash course, but I learned and I understood. And so I guess the kids call it tapped in. And so that's the only place I can really compare Baltimore to.
Yeah.
So of course it's a different environment.
Keep talking, I'm listening.
No, you're good. The school that I'm at, though, is a college-ready school, and so a lot of the students there have a different mentality. But from what I've been hearing from people that are there, it's still just the environment that the students grow up in. It's not like it is here in DC. It's not really of giving of like college future, things of that nature. So as an educator and a teacher, we're kind of combating a couple of different angles, which is always going to happen.
What are a couple of those angles?
Oh my goodness. First is secondary trauma, and identifying that and having and letting the students be okay with identifying that. Would
you be able to define first trauma and secondary trauma?
First trauma, from my understanding, from what I've been reading, is I experienced something. I experienced traumatic death in the family incident. I experienced homelessness. I experienced family separation, something with me, right?
Yeah.
Secondary trauma is I'm experiencing this and you're watching and now you are responding and reacting to that.
So would you say that is sometimes what trauma bonding comes from? In terms of people wanting to be there and a part of your experience of how can I help this person? And the goal isn't usually to get closer. You just happen to get closer while trying to help that person. And
then, so...
I know that was a wrinkle you weren't
No. But I like it. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense because I'm just an observation of my students and in the school environment, that's what's happening. A lot of the students are bonding over incidents that have happened recently in the school year when they're in their neighborhood, beefs, arguments, and so it may not even be. You may be a third party associate of it.
Yeah.
But now because that main person's going through it and that main person knows that center person, we're connected. We're all kind of going through it.
Yeah.
But I think also that is supposed to happen with children, with youth, with especially the developing into adults.
Yeah.
I think what tends to happen with adults is that we don't begin to recognize where our trauma starts and ends, and then where our help starts and ends for somebody else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think once those two things start to meld, or the identity of what's happening isn't acknowledged, that is where, to me, that trauma bonding really begins, because now you both are in a traumatic state trying to figure this out, and you're bonded. You know?
I have an observation. So, as of late, and I don't think late is 2 years, I think as of late would be safe to say 10 years, there's been this conversation of I don't want my relationships to be transactional. But I think a lot of us miss that a lot of relationships are naturally transactional. And what it really comes down to is, what do you view as transactional? For a lot of us, we have a negative connotation with transactions because I had to pay something and I have this receipt, and most people have buyer's remorse. And I think when it comes to what you've described, when people have those bonds in terms of trauma bonding, because that's what we happen to be talking about right now. That was the goal, but that's what we're talking about right now. A lot of folks are like, well, I don't really know if I could be cool with this person anymore because I realize we bonded over the trauma, but outside of the trauma, we don't really have anything else that connects us. And then you hear the conversation of, oh, now you're trying to make this transactional. It's like, well, the transaction was the person was there for you and you appreciated that. But the other part of the transaction you didn't think about is, all right, if that trauma and hurt wasn't there, would I be able to maintain this relationship with that person? That
part. Would I have even bonded this way with this person?
I would have never given you a chance if we never had that.
If we never had that thing in connection. And so then in lies, which a lot of transactions, you have to have a conversation. And I think that's another piece that is missed for adults, is that we just don't talk around or through what's really happening. You know what I'm saying? We're not ready to identify, hey, you know, this has been cool, but a part of me has shifted, and that's to be okay. Or even identifying not really what's expected, but what is my outcome as we're shifting into a space together. Because I think those conversations are needed, and it goes back to a transaction. But people think that's so non-emotional or X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, no. I was like, you know, thinking about being married. And this is just me. This is just me. I'm going into a situation with someone, and I have kind of a calculated list of what I know it means to be married, what I'm looking for in a partner, all those things, right? And if this person doesn't align with that, that's fine. I'm not going to do that. And so there again is that transaction of, am I going to put my dollar in or not? Because I don't want buyer's remorse.
You only have $1.
I only got $1.
And you might not get change back if you put it in.
You know what I'm saying? Or if I get this dollar back, it's not going to be the way I you know what I'm saying? If I put in, I want kind of what I put in.
How dare you crumple my dollar?
You know what I'm saying? And so you have to, so people are afraid, especially in relationships, to have that conversation. But I'm like, you have to. Like, consent is a thing, and it's something that people don't readily want to talk about.
And everyone defines consent differently across the board too. The same way a lot of people define what does it mean for you to be there for me, a lot of people define that differently too. So these are things that are said in passing, and there's not really depth to. Wait, so when you say you want me to be there for you, let's break it down. Like, you know, if you could write a list, just write a list for me.
That's it.
And most of us are afraid because we assume be there for you is when stuff hits the fan. I have to be there, but sometimes be there for you is if you need someone to talk to. I'll be the person that hears that conversation, and I may not have the capacity to handle that wave of emotion. And it is establishing like what that looks like, and so somebody can say, I can listen, but I may not be able to give you. So you know what's expected, especially as we're just going through trauma and identifying what it is, knowing what's expected and knowing what you want. You get to identify those things. We're allowed to say that, especially the people that are saying, I want to be there for you, I want to care for you, and help you through this. If this individual that you're talking to responds in a way that, not that you're not expecting, but doesn't align with what you know is safe, that's fine, but I get to find other people because through this process, I know what I need. And you get to give the kids that language early. Now, have you ever ran into issues where the adults in the room don't have the language, and now these kids have the tool, and the adults are like, how dare you talk to me like that? And the kids are like, well, I was given this knife and this fork, and you as an adult only have a spoon. I don't see this going well. And so, yes, a couple of times. I can't really give like a specific, and not because we're being recorded, but I just can't finite just one time to talk it through. But to me, that goes back to a level of, for the adult, not acknowledging what trauma existed before you enter the classroom and what's yours and what's not yours. And remembering that these are students and they're children. So they're going to use the equipment that we give them. They're supposed to. You know what I'm saying? They're supposed to want to apply, especially if we're telling them,
apply this knife, apply this fork. We can't be upset that we ended up with a spoon.
Yeah.
We should remember that we have a knife and fork, but not in a defensive way. And we want to teach our kids how to operate those things in a non-defensive, not offensive. What's the other word I'm trying to find? I can't think of it, but
take your time.
in a more supportive way for them.
Yeah.
You know, so if we aren't showing up authentically for our students, and if we aren't giving ourselves as adults in the classroom the space to say, I am or I am not being as authentic and transparent in a respectful way to these kids, once again, we can't be mad at what responses they give us, because we are, for my belief and my observation, we're now engaging with their trauma, and we may not even know it because of how we're responding to them. And so if we're trying to control or reprimand a kid, but if we're trying to reprimand it or put a kid in their place, right?
Yeah.
Here's one bubble, but in the other bubble, we're teaching them to advocate and have autonomy and ownership of X, Y, and Z. When they start coming around, when they start rebuttaling to, I'm trying to put you in your place, we have to eat that up and say, this is me.
Yeah.
This is only me trying to get my point across, but not hear the message. And especially with youth in the classroom, not their message is the most important, but it's more of them than me. So their message is going to be the more resounding message. And so I've had to have times in my class where they've come in and they're like, we're mentally not here. If more than 4 of my kids come in and they do that, I'm like, okay, y'all, we're going to have a free ride day. We're chilling.
But they communicate that instead of you having to figure it out.
Right, but that started with me starting off my classroom in transparency and being authentic.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, this classroom is going to operate according to what's safe, but more importantly, how you all engage. And not just with the content, but how you engage with yourself, how you engage in space with others, how you engage with me.
Yeah.
And we're going to form communication. So I teach a strategic reading class, which is a new course they've implemented in Baltimore and DC and other school districts because the pandemic really affected our students.
What would be 3 things that you would say our students were directly affected by when it comes to the pandemic?
As far as English?
Education.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Let's do education, then English.
Okay. Decreased social skills, decreased application of transferable skills, and the decreased ability to have that check. So when you're around people, who you are is great, being authentic, but certain things people are going to check because it may be just inappropriate, it may be doing too much, X, Y, and Z. And if you don't have that, you wide open to whatever.
Yeah.
And so for almost 2.5 years, this is what 13, 14 children, like they were 12. Yeah. And this is what they're processing. So we have the learning. We had the shift of teachers during the pandemic, which completely dwindled. Because
there was a large shift of teachers. Still a shifting of teachers. Yeah.
That's going to be a whole different conversation. But and then I didn't teach during the pandemic, but I knew educators. And so now you have to go through and just reformulate your entire plan as a person teaching, going from in person to doing things, having to use new platforms, this, new that, and then online. And just everything happened. So the first year, it was just
chaos.
Everybody just and all the kids just passed because the system was literally just failing on itself. And so now they shifted them back into the classroom, but there wasn't any classes or workshops around what that transition looks like. And I get why it didn't happen, but it's needed now because communication is key. And knowing what communication looks like is viable, especially when it comes to English.
Also how it needs to be digested. Yeah.
That part.
Yeah.
And so their question B was, how is it impacting English? A lack of ability to make inferences.
Okay. Give me an example.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So we can get, I had a, oh God, because I'm laughing because I remember this lesson. Okay. Gave him pictures, right?
Yeah.
We had a guy on a bike, and his bike was like toppling over, and our inference is he's fallen off the bike. Okay, I said, just tell me what happens next.
Yeah.
And it was crickets, and I was like, y'all got to be joking. And they were like, what do you mean what happens next? And I was like, what do you think is going to happen to him? They were like, how do we think with a picture?
Oh.
And I was like, okay, so it was basic.
Did you keep a poker face as this was happening?
Yeah. Afterwards, though,
when you're having the realization, it's kind of just like, oh, I need a private moment after this.
And you have to just kind of keep moving through, because that trust and transparency, granted, because my next comment was, okay, so I know the disservice that have been done to y'all. That was me being transparent around. I immediately was like, we're going to shift to different things. We're going to just have
kids pick up on that?
My students do. Okay. Because I let them, but I only have 15 kids. Okay, so it's a smaller class.
Yeah.
They're 10th graders. But they pick up on, they know the system is rigged. One, they know that because of the pandemic, people are still shifting from there. And so to a certain level of degree, they're still not taking advantage of, but relying on the whole, I'm going to be passed through. And nowadays, it's a little more debilitating than, prior years when it was happening, when kids just passed through for like sports, things of that nature. It's kind of whole classes. Yeah. And so going back to the picture, right, I was like, okay, so this is a basic. I was like, so what you're telling me is that if it isn't told to you already, you can't understand what the next step might be.
Which means there's now a lack of imagination because of what you've missed out on.
And so that's how we got there. I said, so what occupies your time when you go home? Of course, TikTok and their phone. Yeah. And then we got into language and spelling. And I forgot how we kind of got into this conversation, but this one gentleman, one of my students got up and was like, I was like, I want one of y'all to tell me a conversation that you all have with your friends, but I want you to kind of put it on the board. It wasn't a mistake, but it was a challenge because they were like, we don't want to go on the board. Yeah. So I get that. But
you saw the fear.
Yeah. One young man did, and so he wrote it out, and I was kind of following some misspelled words, but then he put "ard" by, and I said, "What's ARD?" He said, "Like all right, bye," and I was like, "Oh." I said, "Are you saying all right?"
The slang has become permanent.
The slang has become English.
Yeah. And also how you would spell on social media has translated into that's how it's supposed to be correctly spelled instead of how it's spelled in the classroom versus slang.
That part.
Okay.
And so once I identified that, I was like, I need to modify my test to give y'all a chance because so we went through basic spelling words. So we spent the first almost 3 weeks. And in the classroom, we're kind of held accountable for staying on the curriculum, staying within all those things, right? Kind of learned from my mom. My mom's kind of a rogue sometimes, right? And so I immediately was like, hey, this is kind of where I am. And she said, you got to stay with your curriculum as much as you can. Decide the rest for yourself. And I said, we're going to spend about 2 weeks in spelling words then. Yeah. I have to get them at least to acknowledge 8th or 9th grade words, maybe 7th grade for some of them.
Does this ever make you look back at the teachers that are still there that had their chances with these kids and what they haven't done? Because it's like, I don't know if I'd be able to be cool with my colleagues knowing you push this through and eventually these kids are going to go into the world and not only are they not going to be prepared, we know cases like this that are our age that went through that. And we see what that looks like in adult form.
Yeah, the students are never my issue. It's 100% the adults. Yeah. And the one thing that I can say is because I'm at a college ready school, the adults kind of carry themselves in a slightly different manner.
How so?
They are okay with at least acknowledging their downfalls in that area. Yeah. But actually doing the work is where I'm like, hey, especially being a sped educator. So that's where it shifts for me because when I push into these classrooms, I support my kids either one-on-one or a group of them, whether they're amongst their peers or not. If this teacher hasn't provided accommodations or a modified assignment for all their students, then they've missed what the baseline is of what's happening, right? And so then I go into, I got a problem with you because you're showing me that you're just getting them through or you're okay with not me giving them Fs, but them earning Fs from the lack of support in this lesson.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's what pisses me off. That's what upsets me, excuse me, is because it's like...
You can be honest. You're fine. You good. You good. I'm not going to tell you to not speak your truth. You good. Yeah.
So that's what bothers me. And then there is this stigma that every student that has an IEP has a behavior problem. And that is...
Can you define an IEP for the folks who don't know?
An IEP is an individualized education plan. And so this is it is a very specific document. It's about 25 different tabs that between myself, my IEP chair, the guidance counselor, and the school psychologist, we all engage and put in our part around a student.
Yeah.
So it's like a psychosocial bioanalysis, and then we also have like the academic analysis, as well as a post-secondary when they graduate high school.
Yeah.
And so for me, first of all, what I want to say is the school system, going back to the whole COVID thing, I hope that at some point, and maybe it'll be some people that I'm working with, we can really get with the union and the district and talk about how to get, even if it's volunteers, even if it's college students from Johns Hopkins or Morgan that need, or, interns who need hours. Can we get just more educators in the classroom? And what I mean by that is not teachers, but people who don't mind imparting gifts and transferable skills into these students. Because right now what we need is a gen ed, a special ed, and about 2 tutors. That is what's needed in every classroom for it to function, for these kids, for these students to really have a chance.
But what's in the actual classroom when you show up?
We got one teacher. Some have the 9th graders where I am have a tutor that floats around, but it's mostly for like the math classes.
So that's one person that's doing 15 people's jobs.
Yeah, and is only there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right?
So limited, and the kids don't understand how much of a blessing that is. But I'm a kid; I'm not supposed to understand a blessing. I'm just glad I'm here.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm more upset that my mama woke me up some days, but either way, I'm here. But yeah, it's really just reminding the adults in the room, like, hey, we have a job, and we have
for the ones that aren't working. For the ones that aren't working,
right?
That are just showing up.
Yeah.
I got you.
And my thing is, we have a job, and then we have a service, and we have a duty. You know what I'm saying? And so, our job is to make sure that we meet our evaluation scores.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But our duty is just taking a minute and saying, okay, I'm realizing that I have a predominantly failing class of kids. What am I not doing? Because it's not these students.
Yeah.
How can I take a step back and say, okay, I get the district, I get the school board, I get everybody has X, Y, and Z they got to knock off their list. And in a year, if I don't take that moment, what's going to happen to this person?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
because even if they're little, they're still a person.
They're still a person.
Yeah.
And how not to engage with their trauma, with their trauma bonding. Going back to the other question, because they come in with a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
Whether it's I had a bad conversation with my mom in the car, or today was the first day me and my brother ate in 3 days, and those things are still happening.
Yeah.
And as adults, we don't think like that's a real thing, because either we live through it and kind of process out of it, or it never impacted us at all.
Yeah.
But we don't get to forget those things.
Yeah.
We don't forget that they're people. So it's the adults that.
So it's the adults.
It's the adults that just throw me off, and I'm like, all right, but I get it also because it's not exhausting work. It is tedious and time consuming, but it's also rewarding.
Underfunded.
Yeah.
Undermanaged. Less resources.
Which is ridiculous.
An unrealistic expectation, not only from the parents, but also from the state. And everything that needs to be revamped and redone is never going to happen, because education is always one of the things that takes a blow first when it comes to the budget. So what what should be happening and what should be developing is doing everything it can to not develop. If anything, it's probably going in reverse from what you're seeing in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a huge doubt. I mean, like, so inference, spelling.
What's that?
So they students have a hard time spelling.
Okay.
Like actual words. Writing.
You look great on camera, by the way.
I appreciate it.
I'll be checking the cameras. I look great on camera.
Thank you.
Good job, you. Just had to let you know. I looked at her, I was like, okay,
I appreciate it.
Like, cool.
This is after a long day, so I appreciate it. Oh, I appreciate it.
Speaking facts.
Because we had PSAT and SAT tested today, and so we had a very, the schedule today was great. If we could develop the schedule that they use today into the actual schedule for school, oh my goodness, because students don't learn after 40 minutes. They've checked out.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. What was your question prior? My apologies. I said spelling, and
You said a word that I didn't know, and you said it basically means that they struggle with spelling.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot where I was going with that. But
I think you were talking about the program that was put together and how well that program would function if they did more of that at the school. Because I remember you said it was the end of the day, but the program we did was amazing.
yes, I'm just losing my thought. I'm gonna get back.
You
to
good?
It.
No, you good. We're not judging. You good? You had a long day. I caught you at the end of the day.
Yo,
have you had lunch? Have you had food today? You have to go walk a cute puppy and then come through. I just
I appreciate this because it helps me process what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too. We got to remember as teachers to stay kind of tapped into certain things.
As I'm hearing you talk, I'm like, we're probably gonna have to come back to do like 7 more conversations that just have a focus on the concerns, and that's not bad. Like to paint a picture, because most adults right now who are parents, you have a side that is, I want my kids to get the best education. You have another side that's, we have limited resources, but we're going to do everything we can to get our kids ahead. And then you have a certain amount that's like, look, man, I put them in school because I got to go to work. So
That's
you
what
got to
we
just do what you got to do. And then you just got the section that's just like, look, I had a kid.
That's what we had.
I had a kid. I am okay with it. I had a kid. So what we doing? Yeah. Yeah. No, that's, yeah.
And I get to see all 4 of those. You know what I'm saying? Which is a really cool case study because then they have to interact with each other.
Yeah.
But what I do appreciate about how this generation of kids, this 2003 to 2008 age group, is their ability to get through certain things that I remember held up kids when I was growing up. It would just hold us up emotionally, like, oh my God, like to be called a bitch, which is but now they're like, you want to go have lunch?
Yeah.
And so to watch it, I'm like, oh wow. So
desensitized.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, it's extremely desensitized because no one wants to be called that. And on the other side for me, it's like, but we're not arguing either. So it's odd because I'm like, because even so there was a situation that happened not too far from the school, and the students came to the school the next day and they weren't really impacted by it. And for me, I was like, this is your first football game and it had to be shut down because of some neighborhood stuff going on. And I get that y'all are from here, but this doesn't, and they were like, nah, this stuff happened. I was like, you're not mad this your first football game?
That's not my first shutdown.
You know what I'm saying? They were like, no, they literally was like, I mean, Miss Lynn, this is what we do.
I mean, also, when you think of the worst thing that can happen is someone gets killed.
Yeah.
When, depending on the environment you're in, you just know, like, hey, man, you just got to have your head on a swivel. So if I'm able to come back and all my classmates are here, and every time I count, it's 14 of us, and there's 14 here today, myself included, we Gucci. It's like I don't know. I mean, I get the concerns of the adults because I wasn't raised that way in New Jersey. I was very much not sheltered. I always made sure like I would do everything I need to do in the streets and come home and get good grades. And like, hey, you have to be home by a certain time. So like there was sports, but like my parents, I grew up in East Orange, New Jersey. Then we moved to Maplewood when I was in high school. I don't know if you know New Jersey like that. East Orange is the hood, right? And when I was there, my parents were always like, hey, man, you know, you should spend more time with the kids in Maplewood and South Orange. And I was always like, Nah, I should spend more time with my folks in Irvington and East Orange and Newark.
Okay.
Because, like, there's an edge of competition that comes there and understanding how to adapt to things. And you need to see things up close to understand the value of what you actually have and what you don't have.
Okay.
But also put yourself in a position to not lose it. So that's how I've always been as a kid. Even now. It's like, you know, you can't, reaching back isn't, I'm doing better, so I'm reaching back to you. To me, reaching back is understanding the people, the culture, and what's going on. And when you reach out to them, it's a hand that understands what they're actually going through, not just what's being taken away from them. Like, what was the value to them of what was being taken away, and why does it matter? And then that's how the work moves on to the next steps.
Kind of like Don't Mute DC.
It takes a lot of work, and you have to have a certain amount of emotional aptitude, and you have to have a certain amount of I can't afford to care today. Sometimes there has to be a certain amount of I can't care today because, like, I can't wake up and start crying. Crying has never gotten it done. Getting the work done and helping people and getting resources and reaching out to the right folks, that's what gets the work done, especially when it comes to these stories and doing these sit downs. So for me, I'm always glad when I have an opportunity to have these honest conversations. And I think one of the worst things that's ever happened to us as a society in general is the word liability. Liability really gets in the way of things. Oh, we can't do it because we'd be liable. We can't put funding towards that because there's a certain liability of making change. If we do that, what are we going to get back because we're not liable for this thing? And it's like, are we here to help as educators and people that would like to make a change in the community? Or are we here to look like we're helping? And there's a lot more of the latter than the former.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a good concept, the whole liable thing. Because that landed in so many places for me, right? Because if I know, if I'm going into something that I want to build and create, and I know that it's centered around X, Y, and Z, and it's following X, Y, and Z. The liability portion should kind of be like, it's just wording, you know? But then it's like how, it makes me wonder, what are people trying to start things for if they're not moving through that? Like, I'm going to eat off that for a little bit because that landed in so many places.
This is a great interview. I could see you editing this tonight and like sending it to you tomorrow and be like, don't put it out because I put it on the YouTube, but I would like for you to like look at this and dissect it. Because like sometimes having a conversation with the right person is like, all right, now I know what I need to do. Yeah.
And that's really what I'm like processing, kind of like, especially knowing that quarter 2 is coming up and it's expected that the rigor around the lessons, the rigor means how hard it is, how much the kids have comprehended and retained, all that's going to elevate, you know, because we're leading now to middle of the year, end of the year assessments. Standardized testing does not work for our kids. It does not. Do
you think standardized testing is even a good measure of where kids are right now?
No. I don't think it's a good measure of education. I think standardized testing is necessary for other places, not in the school. There are so many other assessments.
It's more of a business acumen thing. That's it.
It's more of a transaction. It's more for the district to say, here's where everybody is, and here's a district thing. But
we now have a collection of numbers.
But we can assess those things differently. We can assess all of that in more applicable ways for these kids to take something from. Then I gotta go and take this test. I'm going to either not answer questions. I'm gonna whiz through. And we still don't get an accurate reading of how you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Until you get in the classroom and now the teacher. So then there's like the other understanding of, you got a standardized test, the kids take it serious, they collect the data, we get the data, and as teachers, we're supposed to dissect that and add their challenges somewhere in our lesson plan. Our entire lesson plan has been accommodated for their challenges now. You know what I'm saying? We don't have a gap to actually teach on their grade level. We don't have a gap to actually assess their acuity skills, how they've comprehended things, where they are right now. And it's just an unfair rubric to try to just evaluate somebody from. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, that's all it really is. It's an evaluation. But you're not capturing the essence of what this person has given these last 9 weeks. So I just don't think that when it comes to education, standardized testing, like I say, for certain places, great. Or we need to give these students, we need to base our entire lesson plan and I know this is going to sound odd, right? But if teachers in the real world, if we could get the actual, if we had the test and just based our lessons off of that, that would give them a better chance than going through the English language curriculum.
You know, that's all right. So here's why your statement is hilarious. And what you're saying is valid because it's your work and you're in it. But there's this assumption that what you're doing isn't a part of the real world.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, when it comes to you as a teacher. And when it comes to the kids, oh, they're not in the real world yet. We're getting them ready for the real world. No, this is actually a part of the real world problem that you're seeing up close. The teacher's getting away with it. Technically, you haven't really been able to take a step forward with the students because you're looking at how much work has not been done on the students on the education front. And then the emotional front is just atrocious.
Yeah.
So then it's like, you know, where am I supposed to? What do you mean I need to start working? I've been working so hard. I'm working on the thing you didn't do.
That part.
Yeah.
That part.
Yeah,
that part.
That's crazy. And then, were you about to say something?
No, not really. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you think mental health belongs in a classroom?
Yes, that's so odd because I was literally going to say a lot of so I'm 38.
Yeah.
So a lot of my students, their parents.
Good for your age.
I appreciate it.
Good for your age. Good job.
I appreciate you. A lot of the students, their parents are my age or younger. That's not a problem. The issue, the slight is that when the opioid crisis happened, it impacted my age group the most.
Yeah.
So a lot of the kids I have in my classroom, their parents some were opioid users.
Yeah.
And so now we have that historical trauma impacting this kid before they even know come into the classroom. And so going back to your question around mental health, absolutely we need mental, emotional, intellectual, developmental health care and like our school has 4 floors. We need a section of that on every floor.
You want to hear something wild? I've been offered jobs at schools that wanted me to do what I do here with you on a different capacity. Guess how much they want to pay them?
I don't even want to talk about it because it's not.
So we know there's an issue.
Yeah.
We know I'm more than qualified for the work that you want me to do. You want to hire me for the work? Pay me in beans. Pay me in beans and coins, right?
Right.
And then also put another roof over my head of, well, we would pay you more if you have this, and this. Fam, I've been doing this work from 2018 to present.
I got it.
Okay, I got everything you need. And you're telling me that I need to save up from this job you want to hire me for that's going to pay me in beans, right? And then plant these beans for like years, basically a decade, in order to not make money and then get all this stuff just to make the equivalent of what a teacher would make finally getting in there. That's crazy. That's crazy. And I'm talking about master's level stuff because I have my college degree and everything else. And it's just like, nah, you guys are wilding.
Yeah, and it's no reason to because once again, if you've cut these programs, you've cut music, performing arts, things that children need. You've cut vocational classes.
Super necessary.
You've cut tech. I mean, the car mechanics. You've cut all these things out.
Real life stuff. Yeah.
But we don't have no money.
Yeah.
And it's not that.
That's why social media is so much bigger, is because kids could get that fix of seeing great creativity and seeing examples of that and being a part of that process because so much of it has been taken out of the schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're getting that, like you say, I can tap into somebody's webinar and learn pain X, Y, and Z.
YouTube University.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But then it takes away from that real life aspect for teachers because I'm not seeing my teachers do that.
Yeah.
You know, so that's something my mom has been doing this for 40 years. So I think that's why I have some things that are a little more frontal than most people. Bringing yourself to the classroom is essential so that your children get to see an option of who they may become in you.
Yeah.
If you don't give them that option, if you don't give them that real, I'm a real person, I have real things going on, they never want to ask you the process of how you got there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so I tell my kids, I play the violin, I sing classical music, I do these things, and I have 22 tattoos. Both these things can happen. I tell my kids, I had an IEP. It functioned for me. And I'm not slow.
Yeah.
And so they get to ask me questions. They get to say, okay, this is somebody, and they get to address their stigmas and bias around things. And then, according to how they trust me, figure out, is this something I want to take with me or leave? You know? But once again, I just learned that from my mom. But there are people who have that access, you know? And so not bringing your real self is going to get the kids back on YouTube University. And then when you try to address things your way and they've learned it already from somebody who is non-biased, non-judgmental, giving them what they want, I can't relate to this tangible person now.
Yeah.
And once again, the adults are just we're trying to teach, we're trying to go with the standards, yada, yada, yada. But you gotta bring yourself.
Yeah.
In a respectful way.
Because kids realize when you don't bring yourself.
Oh my goodness. Because when you blink.
On it. Yeah. They be like, oh, damn, that's who you're going to be today.
That's who you're going to be today?
Crazy. That's crazy.
Bet.
Yeah.
And it's a done deal after that.
Yeah.
And I've seen teachers, I mean, even this year, even though we're only in almost November, but we have dwindled.
Yeah.
You know?
They fold in like origami. Yeah. Yeah, it's the truth.
And I think that there isn't a lot of support given to first-year teachers, which, I mean, has always been happening. Well, actually, take that back. Once again, for my mom, I remember a point, especially in Jacksonville, when the special ed department were budding, right? And it functioned way different.
Yeah.
Them teachers was tight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You couldn't put a penny between them. If they said we wasn't moving the kids to a class, we not moving the kids to a class.
They was moving into purpose.
And that's not happening anymore. And so when you see one group of educators doing that, it opens the door for other gen ed teachers to come and talk and be like, how can we? So then a school is rotating functionally, you know. So I experienced functional schools for a while. I went to a performing arts high school. So I went to Glee for high school pretty much. You know what I'm saying? So
the real Glee.
The real Glee.
I got you.
So it was functional because they were allowed to bring themselves there.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I went to Ballou, and I love Ballou, but getting to Ballou was Southeast is just dangerous. I mean, it wouldn't go. I mean, it. So I was just, you know what I'm saying? This is what it is. Like I was just over, like, kind of being shot. Not even at, but like I'm trying to go to work from the train station. Yeah, so that just kind of gets on you, like losing students. So.
And for the students like, look, man, this is our reality.
This what we do.
Either you down or you're not.
And they love me. That's one thing I loved about them is because I brought myself. My kids would text me and say, just catch an Uber to school. You know what I'm saying? If I see you, I see you. If not, I love you.
Just give you a heads up. Yeah.
And that for me imparted so much more than I've gotten in some of these training classes, learning about social, emotional learning, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Having a student look at me as a person, it helped just transition a lot of things around how I see education.
Yeah.
You know?
It started with you first because you treated them as such.
Because,
Yeah. Students do a great job of being a reflection of the rooms that they're put in. Yeah.
Ooh, that is so true. Because I'm thinking about a couple of teachers who the students are just like, we are a sentence away from rebelling and shutting this thing down.
Yeah.
But it's,
you can curse.
It's the teacher.
Yeah, you can curse. No, don't be fools. You can curse. Say whatever you got to say. If you two say, "Oh, we're not gonna pay you for it," I'm like, well, that's what reality is.
This is it's real nigga radio. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? So
Pronouns.
I identify with they, them. I prefer he, they, them. But I also know that
that's an interview for a separate time. I don't want you to I don't want you to squeeze your journey or your experience into like a 5-minute convo. That's not doing yourself justice.
They, them, he, they, them.
You feel what I'm saying? Because like you have to fight to get here. That's it. And you probably still have fights with people. I think the worst fights, outside of like the fights with strangers who think they just understand your experience, is the fights with people that are closest to you that understand why and what you've been through. And now it's just like, damn, bro, you can't even fucking make space for me.
You can't even chill for a second. You've been this since A1 day one.
We done fought niggas together, and now you just that.
now I gotta look at you different. That'd be the part right there.
I can't unsee that.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's a real thing.
Did you want to discuss that today, or would you more so want to touch on the content that you want to make with non-binary kids and why that's important?
I can touch on me later. I think talking about the students and being non-binary and is a little more, not more important, but right now a little more valid.
It has a purpose in terms of the whole convo. That's why I was like, we do the whole convo and then we go back to do the introduction. Because like, you don't know what you're going to talk about. You talk and then you're like, oh man, that's a great point.
Right. It's almost like writing a paper that gets their title. It makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing for the interviews. That's what I've been doing too.
And this is why I'm hoping that we pay you more. I'm saying to the cameras because yes, you. Okay. As far as teachers, as far as the school board picks you up, and I say the education system, right? Because what you just said is important. What you just said around, oh Jesus, I got so excited.
Take your time.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about why the content for non-binary kids is important right now.
And then you led into something else. You led into. Because it brings, you brought up an important transferable skill. When we look at this again, I'm going to look at it, I'm going to write it down, and we're going to get back to it. Okay. Because it's so important as to why you're needed, because bringing that out for kids and letting them see how it works in real time is, I'm going to let you know what it was.
I actually had a discussion with my partner, and like, you got to understand, doing the mental health and wellness content that I've been creating for like the last 4 to almost 5 years, I've never had a dream of being a content creator. I don't even dream of change. I just dream of understanding and hoping when we have enough people with the right tools, folks can do better by people that they've promised to do better by, including themselves. Because unfortunately, people mess around and sacrifice so many parts of themselves, they forget what they were sacrificing for, what the sacrifice is supposed to go towards, and like the purpose of what are we looking to accomplish. Sometimes the fight just becomes about the fight, and it's like you don't even know why you're here. You don't even know what you were said about anymore.
Right. And now I have the resources.
And then you've now moved the goalpost. So when it comes to this, I was like, this talk is actually important for sex education, and the reason that is most parents are worried, hey, when's the right time to have a conversation with my child about sex? And I say this as someone that doesn't have a kid, but it's like, nah, you could kind of just see it. Like, if something is important enough that it becomes a joke in all these comedy rom-coms and everything else and all like these family content stuff, then it's like, all right, so what if your kid isn't sure about who they are? Or the value of the pronoun, or they feel like they're living a fake life? Pronouns aren't meant to force it onto the kids. It's an option of, you hear something and what do you relate to the most? And okay, if you relate to that the most, this is either how you would have to move or move forward with this understanding about how the world has handled that and the kind of communities that you should look for, and do those communities exist for you? Got it.
And it's validated,
including the adults, including the family members, including the messy aunties and uncles, right? Because it's just like, or what if like hey, I heard the sex education, I heard about the pronouns, I actually don't want anyone, I just like me, and that's it. That's it.
And that's fine.
And that's it. But like, there's this force of, we're not allowed to have any of these conversations because it's wrong. And then, throw the Bible in it. And it's like, what's the Bible got to do with any of this? Well, when you look at Gomorrah and all this other stuff, and we don't, and what was it? The Tower of something? It was Tower of Babel and all these other things. And it's like, we have apps that can translate all languages up to this point, right, guys? I think we're running out of things to fight over. I understand the importance of religion, but we also understand the importance of the times are changing, and these people have always existed among us. There's now just words to define them and their experiences. And that's what you guys are really afraid of. Yeah. And even with me, like, I come from a Jamaican family. Okay. There's a lot of things that I've been taught that I'm either fighting or unlearning that go on in my head that it's like, look, that's no longer right. These are the correct words. Do you implement that, practice it. Even if it's uncomfortable, people don't care. That's cool. It's a you thing. Yeah. If they don't want to be a part of the convo, that's great. That's great. If they want to be a part of the convo, that's great too. That's great. But like, let's not blow up a bridge and call it a boat. It's supposed to connect things. That's what it's supposed to do.
And people are supposed to be okay with what's unfamiliar to them. I found, especially with my family, come up in the South, like very binary. You know what I'm saying?
What does it mean to be very binary?
What I mean by that is like it's boys are in pants, girls are in dresses. Yeah. Just like there's no room for middle room. And a lot of that from just my therapy, just acknowledging things, is just like the being unfamiliar with.
You've gone to therapy?
I'm in therapy now.
Congratulations. And you have a great therapist. Congratulations.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, how do you feel about BetterHelp? I've heard some things from people in interviews. You don't got to speak on it if you don't want to. I love asking that question. Because I always see everyone get uncomfortable, and I'm like, say less.
It seems it has perks, but it has way more I'm not sure than perks. Yeah. Because it almost seems like
it's still business.
That part. It's just a hub. It's just okay. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong. What I do is still business, but like I'm in the business of actually building the relationships correctly.
Yeah, and not just getting through a. So
or getting you to sign up and charging you for 5 sessions that you didn't go to, and they're not giving you your money back because of the nightmare that I am. You know, things like that. But that's not what this is about.
Yeah, you've heard real. So okay, all right. So very very binary. But then there's also. And this is something I feel adults still do nowadays, right? When children are really developing through their sexual life. The first I want to say is the conversations we don't think we should have with these kids, they're having already.
Yeah, the kids are having them by themselves.
Having them. And our biggest fuck up is not telling them what's really going to happen. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And not being transparent because we may be ourselves unfamiliar with what that process is because our parents probably didn't have it with us, or we may be unfamiliar with what the kid's going to do with it. But it doesn't mean the conversations don't get to happen.
We don't want to trust the kids.
That part. When they're already doing it.
Yeah. We're afraid of what's happening when it's already happened.
And in ways that some of us as adults can't wrap our brains around. Like some of these stuff these kids are engaging in, as far as their bodies and body consciousness, everything. I'm just like, how have you not, and not like to put a negative thing out, but how have you not had a breakdown yet with just everything that you're going through? Because this is past now, like for me, like developmental high school stuff. Like we're engaging in, and at first I was like, these kids are just, kind of lying, but after enough kids say...
I forgot this thing was on me. It was so comfortable. I completely forgot. I was like, is this thing on me? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. After enough kids say, oh, my homeboy and me, we shot up, did some cocaine or something, like heavy drugs or extreme sexual activities and promiscuity, right? But that's appropriate, but the extreme and the overindulgence of it is where I'm like, how are we still, as teenagers, still functioning to a capacity to make it through these 8 hours?
I think adults watch that movie Kids, and they assume that's like just how everything is. Okay. You remember that movie Kids? Vaguely. That classic? With I'll send you the link. Yeah. You'll see it. You're going to be like, wow, that's a deep cut. Yeah. It's a deep cut classic movie. Okay. Probably one of the first movies that I saw like kids having sex on film. It wasn't a porn. It was just like the way the movie was shot and how quickly things could escalate, and there was never any conversations. There was never any adult supervision. There was never any, hey man, let's just gotta be careful, because a lot of kids, I think, caught AIDS or something like that within the movie and things like that too. And it was just like, dang, this is dark. So like that's what they view everything as, if it can happen, it's only the dark side, not the have the conversation, trust the people, you've raised them. There's going to be hours you're not around. And if there's hours that, if you have to be around your kids for every single second, minute, and hour of their lives, they're never going to be able to grow and know what independence is. And when they finally have independence, their independence is going to be more about how they can stay away from you because you're in the way of the good time, instead of them reaching out to you when they do have a problem and they do want to have a conversation. And a lot of adults just aren't at that level.
And that, or it cripples them into always depending on your responses and your validation.
Hyper-dependence.
Then you have a kid who doesn't want to develop. You know what I'm saying? And so watching those things, and so then you have, so that's when like the whole thing around like gender and sexual identity kind of comes in, because you have some kids who are just not underdeveloped, but their process around developing into that is just so staunch. So of course they're stigmatized as well. And so that's just, again, happening throughout the school day. And so when it comes down to like sex education, sex ed, yes, but not in the way that we were taught. I think we need to do sex ed, and I teach high school, so I know younger years it's a little different. But we get to be as honest as some of these visceral videos that they're watching. You know what I'm saying? As some of the stuff and the content that they're digesting, we get to be as transparent, and more importantly, we get to be a space of just, I tell my kids, look, if you need a condom, come find me. And a lot of times they'll come and they just want to talk to me about their problems. That's it.
Yeah, the condom just opens the door. They actually just want someone to finally talk to.
Because they look at me and they're like, you're an adult that said condom. They're real. They're a thing. And I was like, y'all say way worse. So
and they've probably had these things happen at such a much earlier age compared to back in the day, that it's just like, there's finally an adult I can talk to and I don't get reprimanded for what I was taught, because it's kind of in a lot of the content and the media stuff that comes out anyway. And sex sells, and it's sold to a point that it's really in everything, whether you like it or not. That's it. When it comes to, you about to say something? Something's important. You said and.
This the portion around exploration of your body and how that leads to sexual preference and comfort around your gender identity. I think those are things that should be touched on around 11th or 12th grade. And given space to expand on going into college. I think 9th and 10th grade, they're still figuring it out.
Would you say, so touched on, yes, in terms of, you said 9th and 10th grade?
Because kids are going to always talk about
what would earlier education look like? Because my partner who I dated, she said her grandmother, who was a nurse, gave her a book, and the book made everything simple. She read that book when she was much younger, and she was like, the book simplified everything, and then it was, okay, I can have a conversation. And it's like, are there books that we can buy for the kids to read? Do those even exist anymore? Or are there now political campaigns that stand in the way of education? Because like eventually everyone grows up to be an adult. You can't stop growing. You feel me? So it's like, what does the education look like, and what does the real concern of parents should be when it comes to that? Because we're not telling parents to not be concerned. We're telling parents that you should be careful that your concern can block the growth that your child needs. Because we care. They're not our kid, but we do care enough to say, hey, are you letting us care about your child with you? Or are you just simply saying no? And then when things go wrong or things don't go as you would like or planned, what's the cleanup for that look like? Because you can't just blame the kids.
The cleanup kind of falls back on the teacher, because of course the parent is like, well, if you saw this happening the whole time, why didn't you stop anything? Because ma'am, we got to be on the same page, on the same accord.
And most parents don't want to have a relationship with their teachers.
At all.
No.
At all. They don't. No. And most parents don't want to. Again, it's kind of hard to remember that your child is a kid, so to have that conversation with them. You know what I'm saying? And so, if as far as the age, I think that's a family thing. It seemed that your ex-partner having a nurse for a grandmother may have just been a different environment growing up where conversations just looked a little different.
What do you think? Sorry for cutting you off, but this is really important. What do you think the content for making a booklet or information when it comes to a kid who identifies as non-binary? What do you think the 3 things that should be touched on that content need to be? Because I know you told me, yo, there's a lot of kids in my class who are taught like they identify as non-binary. They're not waiting for the adults to tell them whether they could do it or not. They're like, nah, this is what I am, man. What's up?
That's it.
And you're just like, oh, okay, all right, cool.
That's where we at.
Yeah.
And that was cool for me. I was like, okay, we're on the same page. So what I have realized in talking to some of the students is owning yourself, because you're gonna have some people who just not gonna be okay with that. Be okay with you being non-binary. Be okay with you looking a certain way, presenting a certain way. Be okay with your pronouns. And so the first half is finding a support network or an intrinsic something where, not despite of, but as those conversations and comments are happening, it doesn't disrupt your validation, affirmation of yourself.
Yeah.
They're just going to become comments, you know? And so it's realizing kind of who to impart yourself to. Everybody should be aware of pronouns and identity. That shouldn't be hidden.
Yeah.
But then there are parts of yourself that you get to share with people who so what's safety? Okay, that's the other thing that comes up. What's safety? What does that look like as far as safe conversations, safety in space, safe communities? And the latter part is addressing the self and not so much as a pronoun. Remembering that you're gonna grow up. Okay. And so, as much as some students, so my non-binary kids are very just. This is where I'm at. I'm a shifting sword. And in my non-binary kids, I have some who are starting hormones, testosterone, estrogen, or it's on their radar, and having that conversation with them around how they got there.
Is that ever scary for you as an adult? When someone is going through the process at such an early age, or does that really not count as an early age for the kid who's like, I kind of been waiting to do this for a while now?
So the latter portion, I'm like, okay, cool, because they can kind of tell me, I've gone to my doctor, here's my process, yada yada yada, right? And then you have the other demographic of well, I was told this, or I think I might, and so especially when it comes to.
And there's expenses for both because the upkeep is expensive. Yeah.
And luckily, the mayor of Maryland has dubbed Maryland a safe space for individuals.
Remember that?
Right.
Yeah, when that came out in the summer, I was like, wow, look at Maryland go.
That part, because individuals from Florida have had to relocate up here.
And a lot of down south states also. Yeah.
But the other half is, especially being black, and this is the other half that I wanted to get to. Our black, non-binary, gender non-conforming students and to students who are transgender and going into hormone therapy. We're not reminding them, but understanding that our blackness is going to be the first thing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so what conversations are we having with these now female transitioning to male around what is that going to be a black man in America? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. What is that going to be to meet a black woman in America? Yeah. And
both dangerous sports. Both.
And some people are not recommending this thing, but and I give them the space to kind of like shift and sort through that, because those conversations aren't being had. Yeah. A lot of times they're not being had until.
Do you think there's an assumption that the grass is greener on the other side? And you're kind of just like, guys, grass is grass.
So I get what you're saying, but in all honesty, especially dealing with gender, being intersex, being trans, the grass is actually green on the other side. Because
for a particular sex or just being trans, period?
So what I mean by that is, I'm not taking
Take your time.
I don't take testosterone, but I knew that for me to transition into a non-binary individual, I had to go through some steps, right?
Yeah.
But now that I'm comfortable, I'm a way healthier person.
Oh, okay.
And so
so it's being in the force.
Yeah, and so especially when you're dealing with gender struggles, identity struggles, things of that nature, it is getting into your whole self. And people, and this is where being able to kind of bypass certain conversations is essential, because they're going to see you as what they know, what they remember. And some people are malicious around it. Some people are just struggling with the shift.
Yeah.
And if that isn't instilled in a person around, this is me, I'm going to be this person, it disrupts your flow.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Which is going to happen. But yeah, if you just kind of those three things, right? And then knowing that our blackness is going to kind of be the forefront of a lot of responses that are given.
Yeah.
How do we want to represent, you know? Because we're going to be black all day.
Yeah.
But do I want to be...
Black, y'all. Black. Black,
y'all. Yo. Oh, my God. Yo, wait, that was from... Oh, God. I see him in the phone. I see his little light-skinned self in the phone with the hat. Yo.
Yeah.
That was good. Yeah. So just the ownership of it, the conversations around it, around being a black woman, a black man in America.
Yeah.
Finding space and how really and what kind of responses do I want to give? Because what I've realized that a lot of our students, they respond from their sexual gender identity instead of themselves. And so you have a more effeminate male, he's seen on X, Y, and Z how, and I'm like, but how do you want to respond? Because if that's not how you want to respond, and you just want to be real chill about it, that's okay. You're not any less gay.
Yeah.
I promise you. You know what I'm saying? It's not taking, so just having those conversations with them, because they're going to grow up, and we as LGBTQIA identified people, trans individuals, intersex, non-binary, the numbers, we're being killed in numbers.
Crazy. It's crazy. Just so many names, so much death.
Yeah.
I remember when I was on Twitter and it was just like every day.
Yeah.
And it probably still is. I'm just not on Twitter anymore.
Right. I was like, no, this is a lot.
Yeah.
And so thinking about that, this next, 2003 kids are coming out, they're being ushered into this world of everything, lunatics, just people, I hate the word lunatics came out first, but they're being ushered into this space.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, the way that people are killing them, yes, it is lunacy, so that's not the wrong word.
It's
yeah.
And for me, it's that's the part of the more debilitating portion of teaching, especially my queer LGBTQIA identified students, of how much of yourself are you going to push out as this ushering is happening? So, and what I mean by that is, when you get out into the real world, how much have you learned that keeps you safe in high school are you going to kind of put on the back burner to get along with the real world? Because it looks different.
Yeah.
It looks different than what even you're experiencing now. Being in high school, you may be 18 years old, got your own job, got your car, but when this protection is gone and you out there, it's a different world.
Always have some homies.
You know?
Always keep that thing on you. Hopefully the state laws support that. Make sure you got the right people around you. And don't ever be afraid to stand up for yourself, because people are going to keep taking from you if you let them.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's a good, and it's not a harsh, but it's not an easy reality to kind of take in when you're hearing it from an adult, to be like, this is life.
Yeah.
And it don't change.
Yeah.
This ain't a pity party. This ain't me asking to be, you understand where I'm coming from, or me try to get on your level. This is what it is.
Don't change. Yeah.
Shit don't change. And so what you going to do about it? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? How do you want to continue to move forward and transition through all these things as your gender and sexual identity, they're going to be fluid. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And getting kids to acknowledge that it's okay for those things to change.
Yeah.
You know, because then it opens a door for if I do, so let's say I'm not able to acknowledge the transitional changes supposed to happen to be developmentally, and I'm kind of like, from societal things. So there are some people, you grow up, you a girl, you're a little more tomboy. Everybody want to W you as a tomboy. You a dom, you this and the third, right?
Yeah.
And that may not even be on your forefront, but you've heard it so much, you begin to change those things, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't give yourself that chance to kind of transition that fluidity of identity and sexual preference throughout yourself, you're going to be 22 and kind of 23, 24 and just kind of real confused about some stuff. You know what I'm saying? You're going to want to know what it is to be like to be with a man. Biologically, this is what our bodies are made to do.
Yeah.
But if only people have forced this stigma on you, what are you going to do when you get to college?
Yeah.
You know? And so then we have pregnant studs and all that stigma that comes with that. And that's really not what's happening. We actually have a young woman who was just kind of forced into this space and now having to live with their reality on her own. Yeah. When we could have acknowledged what's happening developmentally, and emotionally and sexually with these kids, and get it, you know, be safe around it, give them safe practices, have transparent conversations.
You know, when stuff like that happens, being black, there's always going to be jokes. The jokes don't stop. Yeah. But then after I'm done laughing, I'm like, all right, man. So this person got homies, right? Hopefully.
No.
That's what you usually hope for, though. Like, got folks to hold them down. Maybe, hopefully.
And you find out no.
Yeah, and it's like, nah, that's crazy. Because like, friendships aren't guaranteed. They take a lot of work. But it is sad when you hear like, oh, so it's just really you.
It's just really you.
And that has nothing to do with getting it out the mud. It's just you.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, that's a real thing, because now we're doing away with all with the identity. We're going back to the personhood. Because if it's just me, I'm going through all these struggles by myself. Yeah. And that's some kids also at the school. Yeah. You know, and they are really just trying to tap into what's real for that day, you know, and what's not going to be too much of a struggle.
You mean in terms of the situation you just described, that's what's going on at school now?
So no, okay. So no.
All right, now I had to separate the two. I was
my bad. No, we
just going to put some lines there. Say, wait.
So, but what is happening is we have some queer youth at the school who are dating older people, and it's just not safe. And whatever your parents allow you to do, whatever. But if this adult that you're dating and engaging with in a certain way is not, of course they're not imparting certain things to you, because just look at the dynamic. Like this is now where the destruction starts to happen. And so and so that is what's kind of going on now. And so even listening in class or in our GSA meetings and kind of just listening to...
What's your GSA?
Gay Straight Alliance.
Okay, just ask questions.
Gay Straight Alliance. And just listening, and then listening to how desensitized they are around what is actually correct. But then hearing, I can't talk to my parents about this. So there's a cutoff.
There's something to be said about that. Yeah. And when it comes to mental health, that's a thing also. Parents are afraid and terrified to ask for advice and help. Like, really ask. Not just assume you're my child, you have to be raised the way that I decide to raise you. But if your child is growing outside of your scope, what are you doing to expand your scope and be what you need to be? Even if you don't want to be, or you wish things were different, you're here now. Right. So what do you do to expand your scope? And when it comes to conversations like what you and I are having, Google is not good. ChatGPT is not good. Yahoo is not good. You feel what I'm saying? You have to find communities of people that have either gone through it or would like to connect you with the right people. That's what my job is, to connect you with the people and say, hey, this is who you talk to. This is who specializes in this. This is going to be the best place for you to learn what you need for either your friend or your child. And like there's something to be said about the paywall that exists when you just want information to learn what you need to do or who you need to be outside of therapy. Like for therapy, there's a paywall. What you and I are discussing, There's no yellow book.
No, at all. No.
You Google organization, you're going to be talking to someone who does admin work that may not be related at all to what you would need to hear to help.
Yeah.
Or to be there for. And I really think, like, not only are we not moving in the right direction, there's not enough general information that's out there or content information that's out there for the person who wants to do right by their loved one. And I think that's the most important part when I look at the gray areas, because everything's not white and black. There's a lot of gray area that's not being filled correctly. Even when it comes to the work that I do, I know my work is making an impact and it's helping the right people, but there's so much gray.
Do you think that some of the gray area comes from
pride and business? That's it. Pride and business. Can we make money off of it? If we can't, we don't need to fill that in. No, it's a waste of time. That's what they make it, a waste of time. They call it, no, it's just small talk.
Oh,
yeah, and it's just like, no, this is where interpersonal communication and intersection actually needs to be filled when it comes to the language and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, people could tell me, I know the truth, because when I sit down with them, I'm like, oh, this is easy if you would have talked to me 2 years ago, but now you're 2 years deep and you're set in your ways, and it's very hard to ask someone who you don't think is directly related, but I have these conversations to understand people.
Okay.
To understand where I'm wrong, where I'm right, and what I may need to do, or the people who ask me for advice, what they may need to hear. Yeah. They don't want to hear it, but you're asking me for advice, so you don't have a choice in what I say.
That's that part.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, because you asked me a question.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I'm like, is it because sometimes the resources have just not been tapped into again?
When it comes to Get Home Safe, I just want to sit down and like figure out, there's certain subcultures and subsections. Like when it comes to LGBTQIA, I always ask if I say it correctly. Yes, I know I'm saying it correctly, but I always ask if I'm saying it correctly. I always think like we do, in terms of you, as a group, do all this work for us to understand what it is now that there's all these words. But what are we doing in the community? Yeah, what are we doing for the community? As someone who's straight, what am I doing for the community? As someone who's gay, what are you doing for the community? You put all these letters to it. Okay, is this conversation going to lead to action items? What laws are going to be passed? What laws are going to protect people? Why do they need protection? Why do they need these resources? Why should someone who's straight need to look up on this? As a hiring manager, do I need to have this knowledge so my bias doesn't slip into certain things? What does their sex have to do with them and their performance and what they're doing for the team and the relationships that they've made? If you guys can't answer any of these questions, you don't understand the importance, we're already in danger. That's all it is. That's what it says. We'll never get along because we're not trying. And that's the simple stuff. But then I look at the other side and I'm like, I have to have this platform in order to have this conversation. I have a lot of trans folks who like I'm friends with and like they don't want to have this convo. Juice, you're doing a great job when I see you. It's like, but there's like, if the world needs 100 juices, to me, that's an issue because the average person should be able, not willing, but able to have the conversation that makes the difference versus the assumption that I'm doing well enough because I'm hiring the right people or we work and we don't argue so we're good. And it's like, nah, that's so bare the minimum. You don't even know how bad it is.
And then more so, what that says to me as somebody, because that's exactly what happens. That conversation is kind of like overlooked. And so it's almost like if I'm expected to follow you as a leader, you're not comfortable. And if you can't be uncomfortable as a leader, then what's happening?
You can't even keep it 1,000.
You see, like for real.
I'm keeping it 100.
You're not. You're really not.
Might be keeping it like 67 if we're being honest.
If you're being honest, because if you can't talk about something, if you can't discuss, not even discuss, but bring up a topic that pertains me and not you, then we're not on the same page. We can't be on the same page. And so that's something that, I was candid with my principal about like, hey, I'm big on respect, I'm big on pronouns. I'm not going to walk around here and if people misgender me, things X, Y, and Z, you're not going to really find me in your office around that. But what you will find me in your office around is how are we, as a school system, integrating things for our students? How are we going to start having these conversations for them? And if we can't, then once again, what are we sending them out into the world for?
Another thing, we've sponsored folks when it comes to like therapy and stuff like that and covering therapy stuff. And I looked at the content and I was like, wow, I've done all this work and I didn't have like, I had people who were gay and lesbian on the platform, but I'm very big on when you come on here, you don't have to let people know what you are. If it's a topic, that's cool. Yeah. But like representation to me is you incorporate the people into the stuff that you're doing. And when someone says, oh, you don't have the things, like, oh, it's been in the room. You just didn't know. Like they was there since day one, actually. Right. But then it's like there's this thing that, and I don't know if it's an American thing or just a culture, humanity thing, where like there needs to be a number of a certain amount to say, see, look, we did the thing. And it's like, no, you didn't do the thing. Because like, do they have any say in the process? Do they have any say in where the culture goes? And are you incorporating their opinions into what help looks like? Because not everyone accepts help unless it has a certain look and a feel to it. Then it's like, all right, you guys did right by us. Yeah. Right.
And then if you do have the token person in the office, kind of what part of the rest of the population are they representing to you?
Token.
You see what I'm saying? So then you're not gonna you're not gonna get. So for then, if that's the case, and you're expecting that from everybody else, you're in for a rude awakening.
Next talk we have, we're going to talk about how that plays into mental health and why that's important, and how that actually deteriorates mental health when it comes to like you're figuring out your identity, because now it feels like there's a price because I opened up my mouth and I decided to be this thing where I could have just stayed quiet.
And this is where I get into some of the heated conversations with my queer friends, because I'm like, to a certain degree,
like, did you see that, right? Folks would think, not everybody's on the same page if they're in the alphabet, what people call it, the alphabet.
Right, the eligibility people.
Yeah,
like, no.
And it's like, no, actually, they all have a different point of view on things. And like, a lot of people do not agree with each other in all communities.
No, we don't. I challenge my friends on, hey, around children age and transitioning. I'm like, no, we need to check in on certain things around that. Everyone gets their space.
No one wants to be equal, honestly, because then they get afraid of, there's always this thought of, if everyone is equal across the board, that means you've taken away from somebody else or something else.
We all got to see the table.
That's just a concept that we've been brought up with, that people don't want to unpack, myself included. Took a lot of time to get to where I was, but as I started to like collect these friends and realize these relationships had different dynamics, I started to look around and I said, am I really helping the people, or does it just look nice to be praised for helping the people? And it's like, sometimes helping the people means helping yourself understand who you're not, and you may not be able to deliver what they need, and reaching out to the right people that may get everybody on the same page.
Yeah. That's why having an ally like you is necessary, because
I appreciate that, because I don't consider myself an ally. Because I'm a work in progress.
I get it, but I also feel that if I were in a space, even if we didn't know each other, based on just the tenets and how you outline who you are, if I was being harassed or anything of that nature, I don't see you like intervening like to a certain degree, but I at least see you checking in on me afterwards.
Oh no, we folks now. So if someone say something, I'm seeing things going south, and be like, "Hey man, you good? Just let me know.
Just let me know, right? You know what I'm saying?
Because we know each other at the gym. You feel what I'm saying? And folks, I don't think anybody knows 3% of who I really am or how I really can be. They just know I go hard. I crack jokes, and I tell everyone who I think is doing a good job, you guys are doing a great job, and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And for some, that's safe. You know what I'm saying? For some people, it's just being seen. It's not even affirmation or validation, but you see me. You know what I'm saying? And we can have a conversation.
Yeah, you work together. I say it all the time. Like, if you hear me, hey, what you got going on today? How you finishing up? I'm asking you this because I think y'all have done a great job across the board, and I'd like to talk about your progress or your work that you're putting in. Because for me, I like sit down and I see who getting it in. I'm like, oh, all right, Stairmaster. All right, bench press.
Right,
okay, deadlift. Okay. All right. Oh, hip thrust. I didn't know she can hip thrust like that. Oh, that's a lot of weight she got going on. And that technique clean. That's a clean technique. All right, cool. Oh, my man on the green. Oh, high stepper with the jumps. I thought he hurt his Achilles 2 weeks ago. Okay, cool. Oh, you in the pool this week. Folks know me from me interacting with their hard work. And then we can talk about them. Oh, you working hard? Yeah, we're going to talk. We're going to talk. Because it's easy. It's much easier to acknowledge a person's work and then a person dictate whether you and I should be more than just the compliments that I give.
Yeah. But I like that around starting with the work, because it's you're acknowledging the effort, the energy, the strength to put out. And sometimes that stuff isn't acknowledged.
Yeah, and you've come a long way, man. You know, when you told me the results, I say, hey, man,
I appreciate it. I appreciate
shout out to you, right?
Because when I moved up, that was a thing. I was heavy. People that remember me then and know me now, they're like, yo, whatever you doing, just... Yeah. And it's a thing. It's a daily thing, because as with anything, you can step off this. I can step off this step at any point and get right back to eating. And
I'm chilling. Right back to food been waiting on me at the door.
That's it.
Not even a question. Yeah, no, I got you.
But so for me, it's like, okay, I can, and it goes back to the validation of who I am and what I've transitioned to from my sexual identity, my sexual preference. Weight loss gain, becoming a teacher, just how all those things, like
even moving careers, which I find that fascinating, of how you studied psychology, right?
Yeah.
And then it could be implemented in so many different ways. And what's ironic is you get to see when it's implemented in the negative ways, and you step in and say, hey, we are going in the wrong direction quickly.
This is about to be a brick wall, and you about to hit your head. And it's normally the teachers who about to hit the head, because the children are appropriately running into the brick walls, and that's the thing that adults should remember. Certain situations they're supposed to happen, like developmentally. There are some outliers that shouldn't happen for kids, right? But as far as going through breakups, having a fight with your friend, arguing with your boyfriend, exploring with sex, skipping class, yada yada. Certain things are just supposed to just happen.
Yeah.
We gotta be okay. Are they killing themselves? Are they killing somebody else? Are they being egregiously disrespectful? Because they gonna talk back.
We have so much distance as adults from kids that we just assume everything is supposed to be like a High School Musical. Speaking of, did you have a dead name, or is this just your name repurposed?
So actually what it is my real name is Cylindra, and so I just love my name. People, when I say that, though, they automatically refer back to, oh, you're a girl, and they miss the concept of, I love my name. I don't know any other Cylindras.
Yeah, fam, I gave you context.
I'm telling you.
I gave
and
you
then I tell you my pronouns, they, them, he. I love my name.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I tell them the story around, I've been Lynn since I was 1. My father can barely say my name. So he's been calling me Lynn.
You mean the long version?
Cylindra.
So like the short version is just easier?
Lynn. I've been Lynn to everybody for a long time. So it has less to do about masculinity and just family context.
Yeah.
So I give people this, and just their comfort goes back to, I get what you see, but I'm also telling what I'm living. You know what I'm saying? I'm letting you know what I'm processing through and how you can help in supporting that process. Now, I'm a whole adult now, and so some people, the whole misgendering thing, I for myself, if it's disrespectful, egregiously disrespectful, I'm gonna step in for myself and be like, we have a problem.
Yeah.
Anything past that, though, it goes in one ear and out the other, because the likelihood of me having any level of conversation past us as teachers is slim to none.
Yeah.
So it's important all the time, but what's important for me in the school day is that we're on the same page academically for this kid.
We had to get it done. Yeah, keep the main.
That's it. Now, past that, I love the teachers there. I don't know any of them as people, and I'm okay with that also. You know what I'm saying?
You're like, this is perfect.
I'm okay with that. They're amazing, and I don't feel motivated to really reach out and be like, oh, let me be a friend with you.
Yeah.
We work together, and I don't really need all that from people. I don't need that from my job. Now I have
like a co-worker.
You see what I'm saying?
I got you.
I catch you at the homecoming game. We would do a 2-step, ain't no problem.
Yeah.
But going out for drinks and whatnot, I'm just because I don't know. Because I'm not taking the time to really get to know that part of you. I don't know what you're taking with you from me.
Yeah.
And this is our job.
Yeah.
And some people don't know how to just keep things at a job pace. And so for me, it's literally in one and out the other. My principal, however, is really good around getting people on the page around, hey, this is the thing because we have students. So if we can't do it for Mixed Lynn, how are we doing it for our kids?
Yeah.
And so she already had that language. So I'm kind of blessed in that space to say, okay, this has already been the conversations that have been had. And I have protection around if things get out the way.
Yeah.
So, but still, in general, I'm like, ain't one out the other.
Okay.
What we gotta do for this kid?
Hey, I'm glad you got good. That's not even tough skin. I'm glad you know how to facilitate what you need around yourself. That's important.
It's been hard, and then once I think talking to a therapist, my therapist was like, you have to remember people are engaging with their blackness first.
Yeah.
That shit opened my brain so much, and I was like, oh, so people are just, you see, people are either looking for a response or they're looking to be educated.
Yeah.
And for me, I ain't got time for that in school. If you're not my student, I ain't got time for it.
Moving in silence. You understand when everyone knows you're moving in silence. You see how I get it when I'm out.